Hey, this is the Daily Overpass. My name is Eric and I make apps. Now today let's ask the question, what would you do if you couldn't write software? Alright, so today I want to answer a question that came in on episode 579 from Colt Eves. Colt said, "Hey Eric, maybe you could do a video on if you had to pick any other profession, what would you choose and why?" Good question, Colt. I'm trying to think whether or not we've talked about this on a previous video, and we may have, or maybe it was a live stream, I'm not sure, but we'll talk about it again today. It's a really good question. It's one that I've thought about before, right? And I want to put this out to everybody else out there too. If you couldn't be a software developer, what would you do and why? And I'll try not to be tricky about this by saying, if I couldn't be an app developer, well, then I'd be a web developer. And if I couldn't be a web developer, then I'd be a desktop developer. Let's say you couldn't be a software developer at all, what would you do? And it's a really good question. And it's a hard one to answer because I don't really do anything else. Somebody asked on the live stream a few weeks ago, tell us something about yourself that's not app related. And I'm like, I don't have any hobbies. Except for going to the gym and maybe going for a run. If there's anything I do that's considered a hobby, it's very passive. Like I like to watch baseball games, or I like to, I occasionally will binge watch a Netflix series, which I know that I shouldn't do. Right, so I don't really have anything to do. If I get a bit of free time and I want to work on something that's fun, I'll like do some Flutter tutorials. I'll start learning something else, but that's software related too. So I don't know what else to go to. Right? I think if I did anything, if I did anything other profession, I would be happiest if it was creative. That's the one thing I love about software development is that you sit down in front of the code window and you have to you find the most optimal way to do things or the most elegant way to do something, and there's loads of different ways to do something. Unlike other professions in IT, with infrastructure or looking at networking, software, I think, is the most creative. You sit down and you do the best job you can, and sometimes the only people who realize the creativity are other software developers because they're the only ones who see it. Right? And if you have if you're working for somebody where the specification is loose, they don't tell you exactly what they want, then you have the creativity to design the interface, make the best user experience. And of course, if you do your own apps, well, that's all creative too. So I love doing that. That's what I love the most about software development. And if I did something else, I would want it to be like that, right? So I was asked this question before, years ago. So when I was working back in 2008, when the financial crash happened and everything was going all haywire, I was working in an investment bank as a contractor, and I went to lunch with a manager, one of my managers, and we were having a chat about this, and we were saying, what would you do if you couldn't stay here? Because a lot of people were losing their jobs, and a lot of contractors, their rates were going down, or they were losing their contracts altogether. So he asked me, and I said, I guess I would just go to another industry. I mean, my skills are pretty portable. I could go to some other industry. And I asked him what he would do, and he said he would be a driving instructor. I just remember that all because it was so out of left field. I thought, wow, you already have something. You've been thinking about this, haven't you? So I don't have anything like that. I just know that if I was going to do anything, I know it would be creative. When I was a kid, if you had asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, it was always the same answer. I want to be a writer. So I wanted to write, when I was a kid, I wanted to write books. And it depends on what I was into. So when I was into comic books, I want to write comic books, or I want to write movies, or I want to do this. And I think one of the things I liked the most about being a writer as a kid was that it's creative, and it's solitary. You don't have to interact with a lot of people. A very shy kid, so I didn't really like to talk to other people. And it was something that really appealed to me. And when I got into high school, while I didn't play any sports in high school, and I know that's a surprise to you guys, alpha male like you, Eric, no sports, but yeah, you'd be surprised. I wasn't on the football team like you guys would think. So I joined the newspaper staff, and I loved it. I was so bad at everything else, it seemed, but I was good at creative writing, and I was good at journalism. So I loved doing that. And then I joined the Army after high school because I didn't think my grades were good enough to go to university. And I probably could have got into university if I tried, but my self-esteem was so low that I just thought I joined the Army, which was still very good. I found my calling and all this kind of stuff. But when I got out of the Army, when I decided to leave the Army, then it was, I went to university and said, what do you want to major in? And I said journalism. But then after a year, I changed from journalism to history, not because I like history more, but I thought it would be easier to get a job in history as a history teacher, and that was the reason I went that way. I talked myself down from the thing I really wanted to do, right? But then when I got into software, that's when I found that it was creative. It was this thing that I could do. So I don't know what I would like to do. It depends, and it's all different things. I think I would be very logical about it. I wish, because I can't just say, I'll just be a writer, I'll be a rock star or an astronaut, because you can't just say that. You have to think, realistically, what would you do? And I think I would do something, but I would have to make sure it was creative. I have to make sure it was something that gave me the creativity and that outlet, the same way that software does, the same way that these videos does, the same way that a lot of different things does. So let's ask the question again to all you guys out there. If you could not, for those of you guys who are software developers, or even if you're not a software developer, say what you do now and what would you do if you couldn't do that. If you could not do what you do now, what would you do and why? Thanks for the question, Colt. That's it for today. I'll talk to you guys again tomorrow.